Serious, what are some scary, horrifying, creepy things that have happened to you, or in general, that could have a plausible explanation, but still freak you out? My family and I went to Dubai in 2004. I was 7, and we were in the hotel pool when we see two big men suddenly come in and steal this family's little girl who looked around the same age as me and sped her into a car. There's nothing anyone cold done because we were all in the pool and the daughter's mother started crying hysterically. We ended up having to write a witness report for the police. I still wonder if they got their little girl back. I was in a major car accident over a decade ago. My car was hit by another car in such a way where I lost control of the car. The car somehow went on a full circle on the highway. I T-boned a Jersey wall, completely destroying it and cracking the next two in line, and I bounced off that onto an off-ramp with my side of the car facing traffic. I'm about to exhale when I hear, "Hey kid, when I start counting you have 8 seconds to move your car or you're going to be hit by an 18-wheeler. Do you understand?" 8.7.6 inches. Voice didn't have to tell me twice. I threw my car into drive and got onto the shoulder. At 1, an 18-wheeler drove by the spot my car was parked on. I should have died, according to the cops surveying the crash site later, but I walked away with a few bruises and I needed a root canal a few days later. I probably imagined the voice, but damn, I'm believing it was something otherworldly. You ever used one of those sleep apps that records noise while you're sleeping? It's supposed to be so you can hear if you're snoring or talking or whatever. I'm having a hard time sleeping right now, so I turned it on. 3 AM, there's a load of footsteps sounds and sounds like doors and drawers opening and closing. I can hear myself moan close to the phone from time to time, like I'm dreaming, but there's not any noise of rustling bed sheets to explain sleepwalking or anything. I have a large velvety rug in my bedroom, so there shouldn't be footsteps. Realistically, I have a metal bed frame, so the clicking and knocking sounds are probably the bed frame shifting when I move, but it sounds really like other things. I'm not recording at night anymore. Here's my best. Would love a plausible explanation. BTW, this is back when I lived in New Zealand. Walking home forest at night with a friend at like 2 AM. Don't even ask. We were about 14. We were having good time, talking etc. When out of nowhere our friend shows up and starts talking to us. Our friend started chatting with us, and I felt a really strong sense of euphoria. This friend knew both of our names and things that he shouldn't have, like exact details of inside my room and things that happened to me before I moved into the country. Then he was just gone, and we both collapsed, physically exhausted. It was then that we realized that we had never met this friend and we were still 10 kilometers from town and another 2 kilometers from our campsite. We just lay there for so long, recovering. I never actually properly saw my friend, I kind of just knew he was with us, and I can't recall his voice either. All I remember is him asking to take us to his house, just turn left. My real friend luckily had the sense to not let me go. That left turn led to this unfenced lookout with like a 5-meter drop to rocks. Don't even want to think about what would have happened if I had listened. Scary shit. I've posted about this before, but when I was about 9 years old, 1995, in the middle of a bright summer day, I went to the refrigerator to get a popsicle. Suddenly a roughly teenage looking guy with long brown hair, like this, wearing a beige turtleneck and red plaid bell bottoms, like this, but with dark green and black lines, turned around the corner into the hallway to my left, then vanished from toe to head as I looked at him. Told no one about it for years, until after my mother mentioned meeting the now grown kids who lived in the house before us, who asked her if she'd seen the bell-bottom ghost. My friend asked me if I would go to her house after work and feed her dog as she would not be home until 3 AM or so. She worked in a bar. I arrived at her house at 8:30 PM and got the key she had left under the mat to unlock the door. Once I unlocked the door, I turned off the alarm and put the key in a white bowl by the door. I'm 100% sure I put the key in the bowl. I fed the dog and played with him for a little while, then went to lock up the house again and leave, but the key was gone. Just then the dog started furiously barking and ran full speed out of the kitchen and up the stairs. He just sat there growling at nothing. The feeling that came over me at that time was so strange. I randomly burst out crying and couldn't stop. Eventually I calmed down, put the dog back into the kitchen, and looked for the key. It was literally nowhere. I ended up finding another key that worked, so I just locked the house and left. I told my friend and she looked daily for about a week. Then one day, the key was back in the white bowl. I've posted this before, but here it is again. The plausible explanation is sleep paralysis, but I've never experienced anything like it before or after this incident. When I was in elementary school, I shared a queen-size bed with my older sister and our family dog, a mutt that looked like a short-haired lassie, would sleep at the foot of our bed every night. When I was about 6 years old, I woke up one night around midnight and saw a dark figure standing at the foot of the bed. The figure was entirely in black without any eyes or a face. I tried to wake my sister up, but she rolled over to go back to sleep. My sister must have accidentally kicked the dog, because the dog woke up and raised her head and started growling at the figure at the foot of the bed. The growling then woke my sister up, and she saw the figure and started screaming. When my parents came into the room and turned the light on, nothing was there. To this day, both my sister and I are adamant that we saw a ghost or other demon in our room. We know we aren't crazy, because the dog saw it too. My wife has told me that very occasionally I talk in my sleep in some other language. She has no idea what I'm saying, but the language sounds a little bit familiar to her. When smartphones became a thing, she recorded me one time. I listened to it the next day, and at first I thought it was Italian, since some of the sounds and cadences were similar. I don't know Italian, so that seemed really odd. I shared it with a colleague who grew up with Italian. Turns out I was speaking Latin, which he had learned as a student. I studied a bit of Latin as a kid. It's long gone now, although I can recognize some words and know some Latin conjugations. He said that as far as he could tell, it was pretty grammatically correct, and that I was talking about a mountain and a lake. Weird as hell. Edit. And for the people tossing Latin at me, like I say, I recognize some words here and there, and can conjugate some verbs. That's about it. So, scintilla in casa laborat. I recognize labor and house. I can guess it means something is laboring in the house, and normally I would think that scintilla was related to scintillate, but that makes no sense. So, you got me. About a year before my son was born, my boyfriend's father died. I had never met BF's father, but heard stories of his twisted sense of humor and how he liked to screw with people. My boyfriend was not particularly close with his dad. We lived in NC and his dad had taken off to Seattle when my BF was young. I don't think BF really grieved until our son was born and he realized that his dad would never meet him. That hit him hard. Over the first month of caring for our newborn, we started to notice screws that had fallen out of household items. Kitchen chairs, towel rack, screen door, outlet cover. The most random shit. More than a dozen loose screws in the span of a week. Kinda weird, but we were sleep deprived parents and didn't really have the mental stamina to waste trying to figure it out. One day we are chilling in the living room and a screw falls out of the light fixture and lands in my BF's lap. He starts laughing hysterically, so hard he can't breathe. When he finally calms down enough to tell me what set him off, he holds up the screw and says, "I finally get it. My dad is screwing with me. Never had a loose screw since." So as a youngster, me and my brother were staying up late playing video games since we didn't have school the next morning. It was maybe 3 AM when we decided to shut it down and get in bed. My room is at the end of the hall, while my brother's was right next to mine. After we shut it off and put the controllers away, we both hear these heavy slow footsteps coming from the kitchen. The kitchen was the only room without carpet, so they sounded pretty ominous. We gave each other a look and I called out down the hall, "Dad." Well, then the footstep sounds trailed back towards the laundry room and stopped. That's also where our basement door is. Well, we knew something wasn't right, so we both start yelling for our mom and dad, and they come rushing to us all sleepy and confused. And we frantically explain what we heard. My dad goes and checks it out and tells us that all the doors are still locked and closed, and there wasn't anything showing anyone was in the house. Plausible explanation could be that it was just a murderer that broke in and scurried off when we called out, but I always wondered what if it was a murder ghost instead. When I was pregnant with my first, I had the worst night terrors. One night I was having a night terror where aliens were hovering over the house and had taken me to the dining room where they laid me on the table and tried to remove the baby from my uterus. I never got back to sleep that night. Never thought of it again until a few years later. My son was now 4. We are driving home from somewhere when he pipes up from the back seat. "Hey mom, do you remember the night the aliens tried to take me from your belly and you said no?" The goosebumps were instant and the husband and I just looked at each other out of the corner of our eyes. Still freaks me out.